Live. Live, live, live. Uh, so it's been a hot minute, Holly,
Hmm.
since we've done anything.
I know
It's
I've
been a
had stuff going on in my life. You had stuff going on in your life. It wasn't easy for us to
it's
plan
God,
to have time together. So
it's been fun, but we'll get right into what is this? Yes, I want the English language. That's what I speak, people. Jeez, I tell you, get no respect. Good whatever, everybody. It's morning for us, but you may be listening to it at any time. This is episode, I believe it's 36 or 37 of Slip Into the Night. Karma's gonna get you.
that
Like
sounds
the,
ominous.
like I said, it's been a hot minute since Holly and I have done a show. It's been a lot going on with the 40 and Slip in general. Um, we will be back tomorrow night. For those of you who are wondering, Steve and Katie and I will be doing a show tomorrow night. Good morning, Erica. We, like I said, the life, the coronavirus, Holly's. I know at one point you were sick, Holly. You're like going through
Yeah,
some.
I was not
Are you
feeling
are
well.
you still dealing with that cough? I was listening to you like when before we were as we were getting ready to do the show in the kitchen. And you had like
It's
a hell of a cough on you.
yeah, I
You
don't
got the
know.
Rona?
I, I to the best of my knowledge, I do not have the Rona. I have had the cough actually for quite a while,
Yeah,
a long time.
I was gonna
And
say because you've been talking about it for a while.
yep, and it may be allergy related.
Ah,
And
well, I know. Well, like we've said before, you work in the medical field, so
yeah, I mean, I
when
have to take my temperature all the time. I've had no abnormal temperatures.
so no
Uh,
Rona,
so
as my son calls it, the Rona.
the Rona, yeah. So I
I
don't
gotta
know.
get
Yeah.
that.
So
No, I just heard you coughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, she got the Rona or what? But no Rona for you. I hope. Let's hope. So we've been going through all this and trying to figure out, getting together to do a show, and then I've had my little hiatus uh, where I was trying to take some time off from Facebook, um, and from doing the shows in general, and then the big blow up happened, and then I just things got weird, and then the puppies were born, and then here we are. Uh, I did take some time off. Like I'm still scheduled out on Facebook, and I barely go on there, but to talk to people, that I keep in touch with. But I'm not doing like my normal Facebook stuff with the like page or whatever, because everything's scheduled out until Tuesday or Wednesday or some shit like that. Um, so I needed to just take some time and really think about where I was going with stuff, and I knew that I was going to continue doing this with Holly. That wasn't a question for me, because I knew in the beginning that the only thing that would change would be the other show, um, because this in and of itself was its own thing. So whether or not we did this and kept it on the 40 and Slip thing or put it somewhere else, it would have continued. So, but as things are, I'm gonna continue this we're gonna keep everything on the channel, the YouTube channel. I'm gonna keep everything on the same anchor page that's been on, so that the downloads for the podcast will still remain the same. I had held off on posting the last show to Anchor for quite a while. But it is up there now, both parts, for those that want to see them. Yes, Eric, I do have puppies. I have 4. They're beautiful. I was showing Holly Ghani, the one we're keeping, right before we started. And they are beautiful. They're great. It's been fun having them. That's for sure. Good morning, Frank. I know it's not morning where you're at, but good morning. So, karma. What made you go with karma? Like, because I'm writing the fucking title and I'm like, is anybody gonna fucking read into this shit?
It just popped into my head.
I hope not. Yeah, because this was Holly's idea, not mine. Just so everyone knows.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, I suggested talking about mantids, like the insectoid alien species, and he shot me down and he said, well, that's a little bit too Fordian, and I want to keep our channel to be on more metaphysical topics. And I said, okay, how about karma?
Karma works. Karma works. And I don't mind when we do the occasional like one-off stuff, because we do stuff on like Gobekli Tepe and stuff like that, but it just, you get too far off and then it becomes like part of that other territory. What, like, how far do you allow one show to bleed over into the other one? You know what I mean? Topic wise. So, but I don't have issues with us talking about aliens now and again on here. But karma, it's a bitch. So they say. Comes around.
Right. So, I mean, I think it's a word that a lot of people use, but some people use it differently. And so I did a little bit of an internet search, and it is, in the Buddhist tradition, it is the actions and the results that you get from the action, or the result of your actions is your karma. So it can be good karma or bad karma, but it is the results that happen from the things that you do. Although a lot of times I think in how we talk about it, it's like the bad stuff that happens because of the bad things that you do.
Right. The karma that comes around and slaps you.
Right. But I think in the pure, like, original sense, that is not necessarily the meaning. It can be the good or the bad. And it is just like kind of the equal balancing out of the things that you do or the actions that you take. So it revolves around action. So there's a similar term from the Buddhist tradition, which is called kismet, which are those things that you don't have any control over.
Yeah, it's sort of like a kismet. Kismet's sort of like fate, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Whereas karma has to do with your actions. And really, when you the idea is that when you get an idea that your actions have an effect, then you're going to do positive actions to create more positive effects, so that it has kind of an additive or compounding effect to it.
So based on this, Robert Plant could have bought his Stairway to Heaven.
He could make it through positive actions, and that would be his karma.
That's right. Purchase that shit with karma. That's some currency right there.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big proponent of the karmic law. I think that putting things out into the universe, I think that I think that we're far too much of a fast food or I need it now people nowadays. And I think that the way that karma and things of that nature work, they're a lot slower than what we're accustomed to. Like, we want our burger and we want it now. When it comes to things like this, it can't be that way.
Right. So I think in the traditional thought process of the idea of karma is that there is some patience and reward to being positive thinking and positive acting to get the kind of positive rewards and down the road.
Mm-hmm. And I also think too that when you do that, when you put yourself in that type of a positive state,
Mm-hmm.
Karmically, if you keep it, you maintain it,
Mm-hmm.
that continues forward. Like that gives you like that forward momentum sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of this comes from from Buddhism, where the thought is the original Buddha was contemplating suffering, and that he came to his conclusion is that people perpetuate their own suffering through negative thought patterns, and then actions that didn't supported the negative thought patterns. And
Right.
so part of it is to change your thought patterns to be more positive and do more positive actions. And the positive is going to promote more positive, whereas the negative promotes more negative and more suffering.
Right.
However, acknowledging that it does take some discipline and some hard work to keep your thought processes positive and keep thinking positively and doing the right thing, the positive thing, and basically taking the high road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where Buddhism is kind of a spirituality that is not so much centered against around a specific divine being, other than cultivating your own inner divine being to be more more positive, I suppose, if you could is a way to say it.
Yeah.
It's not something that I practice. It's just my understanding. And if there's someone in the audience who knows better, I will defer to you.
No, I think I think you described it perfectly. Like I
Hmm.
think that's the way that it. That's the way that they looked at it.
Hmm.
And I do. I think that anything like this, like if you do good things or quote unquote good things, um, and like I was saying before, you get yourself into that positive state, that gives you momentum. That gives you positive momentum. And I think when you get yourself into those states, you can use that positive energy productively. And I think people who can tap into that become more productive, they get more done. So
Hmm.
yes, they through using this technique or whatever you want to call it, they're like, call it the secret, call it whatever the hell you want. They've somehow made their life better. But it isn't through any like magical thing to me. It seems very natural to me,
Hmm.
like what's happening.
Yeah, I would say that karma for me is a bit different than like the thing from like the movie The Secret or all that law of attraction stuff, which is basically saying that if you put your intention out there,
Well,
you're
I
going to
think they're
get
very.
that.
I just think they're very similar.
But agreed, but they are similar in that you want to keep they both of those ideas emphasize you know keeping your thoughts focused on what you want. I think with karma there is more of a
With
an
karma,
idea that it's
it's about morality.
well, and there's a work aspect with it, whereas with The Secret it's kind of like, oh, if you think something and you focus on what you think, you'll get it. But
Well,
to me it
the
seems,
secret is like a genie with wishes.
yeah, it kind of,
That's the way I see it.
in some ways it like underplays the discipline and the work at keeping yourself in a positive state of mind. And this is where we can pull in
Oh
that
yeah,
frequency conversation of, if you are buying into the idea that your emotional or energetic state is a energy frequency, keeping it at the frequency that you're going to attract in kind of like a magnet things of your same frequency. So if you are putting out a positive frequency of abundance and positivity and good actions, you're going to create more of the same.
right.
If you're putting out a frequency of, low energy, suffering, unhappiness, you're just going to perpetuate more of the same.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that when, like I said before, when you get yourself into those positive mindsets, that gives you that ability to stay there. It's easier to stay there once you've gotten there. Instead of like, if you're in a bad place karmically, I would say it's harder to get to that positive place. But once you're in that positive place, it's easier to stay there. As it is with when you're doing stuff to better yourself, i.e., The Secret or whatever, you know what I mean? Prayer, casting spells if you're a Wiccan or a witch or whatever. You know, those things, there's also that can be that momentum as well. So I just think it's not something that I look at and go, oh, that's hokey. You know, when it comes to karma, I mean, yeah, it seems like one of those weird things. Like you would think that I would be very, very skeptical about it. But I'm also a person who thinks that the universe is much like an equation and everything has to be balanced. It's the only way I can look at it. And because if it makes sense to me if it balances. So to me, karma works not just as like a theory. It works for me analytically in my brain.
Right.
It allows me to balance the equation.
Or
So
understand that, the energy that you put in, you'll get
right,
that out in maybe a different form.
right. The spiritual sum, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Frank, good morning, Frank. Frank has had some bad karma.
Well, we all have, Frank. I mean, that Frank. I'd like to remind you of a great artist we lost, Prince. Dearly beloved, we are gathered today to celebrate this thing called life. It's and like I said, I when it comes to karma, most people would look at the way I look at things and say, Chris, Chris is gonna fucking say that's just hokey woo woo shit. But to me, it makes sense. Like I said, the whole idea that this is it, not so much that it's a mathematical equation, but everything makes sense mathematically. And mathematically, everything has to balance. And when you look at the universe from physics standpoints, et cetera, everything has to balance. So to me, the idea of the spiritual side of things balancing themselves out eventually, you know, that it 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 rings true in my brain. So that to me, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, and I mean, other cultures have had this idea too, and it's not just the Buddhist traditions, or which go back to the
Mm.
Hindu traditions. The ancient Greek mythology, they had their archetype, mythological archetype of this was Nemesis, which way we kind of think of Nemesis as kind of like also like karma, the negative manifestation of it, but way back in the BC times,
Well, you got to
it was
remember too,
really
Holly. What a
Nemesis.
lot of what a
Let me
lot of
finish
people.
though, please.
Oh, okay.
Nemesis was the distribution of your rewards or punishments based on your actions.
But you got to remember though, when it comes to like Greek and Roman mythology, the gods that were considered evil weren't necessarily evil. Like you got like Hades was not like an evil god.
No, I
It was a
completely agree.
personification of something.
I agree with that. Yes, and you
That's all I
well,
was trying to say. I wasn't
yeah,
trying to bowl over you.
okay. Um, they none of the gods in the Greek mythology are ever purely good or evil. They all have some kind of shadow side,
Right.
whether it's Jupiter and his philandering, or a lot of the Greek male gods are out having romantic adventures, and their wives are raising the children,
Right.
or they're being jealous and hateful. Like Juno is always portrayed as like the envious wife, and she's giving um, like one of the Zeus's sons a hard time in his adventures because she's upset about him having a different mother.
Right. Yeah. Then there was a lot of that. Then, like I said, there was a lot of duality where it came to that, which you know, a lot of these gods that were considered evil weren't necessarily quote unquote evil. They were just a personification of something else. Things that were representative of death weren't necessarily representative of someone dying. It may have been a representative of change. You know, so there's all kinds of. Uh, so when you had said that Nemesis it is necessarily looked at in this one way, yes. However, like as with anything in that time, there was way more to it than just that, you know.
Yeah, well, it had the same kind of evolution as the word karma, where karma, when you go back, is really good or bad actions and the results of the actions. To the ancient Greeks, nemesis is almost kind of the same thing, but has evolved into just having this kind of connotation of being vengeful and like the negative outputs through time. Retribution is another word that is used for it.
Well, it's almost like a justice in a sense. It's almost like the scales the balancing themselves out. Like I said, it goes back to the equation thing.
Well, right, in the ancient Greek mythology, the portrayal of Nemesis has those scales, which is like the balancing out, but it seems to have focused on the negative.
Yeah.
Which is where we often kind of focus with karma, is we focus on someone has something bad, it's like, oh, you must have did some bad stuff to like get that kind of punishment, where we go to the punishment place, but it's not actually necessarily about that.
Yeah, well, everybody's got their own version. In the Christian religion, you've got heaven and hell is your karmic reward, I guess you could call it. I mean, I don't know. I didn't delve too much into the beyond life stuff within a lot of the other religions and what they completely believe, but you know, you've got a lot of it has to do with that. Some of it has to do with coming back here again and just constantly trying to fix that whole thing and get the karma right. I know that. You know, but if you look at the different traditions, they all have this version of karma to some degree or another.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ranges from either being a disciplinary system or to being more educational of, okay, well, this thing happened and now this thing happened in to balance stuff out. You know, did you learn from your experience? So is it experiential? You know, some people feel that way. Some people, it's purely a discipline type of a system from a higher power. I don't personally feel that way, but you know, that thought is out there. And those who believe in reincarnation, you know, apply this through multiple lifetimes and will attribute, you know, stuff that happened in other lifetimes and then things happen now, and that is karma from other lifetimes. Again, I don't know that's necessarily true, but that thought or that school of thought is definitely out there.
Well, there's many people that believe that they're running through different lifetimes and that they're fixing something in this lifetime that they left over from the last lifetime. And there's people that believe that their lifetimes this time around are in some way tied to their previous life. You know, when it comes to the whole reincarnation thing, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could get behind it. I don't know that I'm like, yeah, because I don't know that it totally makes sense to me. But because I don't know, it just seems like especially with all the new souls and everything, like the universe would get kind of full after like in no time. Just seems to me like it just fill up like poof. So I don't know.
You mean a universe of multiple galaxies would fill up if
I just think it would just go poof. I don't know. It's Saturday morning. We're talking about karma, Holly. What'd you expect? I'm like a coffee and a half in after my falling asleep once after waking up. It's been a morning. So my whole thing with karma is that I get it, and yeah, it makes sense. It's not like this thing that where I go, yeah, that's weird. But like with reincarnation, okay, the thing that doesn't make sense to me is that we're all like you have a child and somebody else has a child and other people have multiple children, so our populations are growing. So if all these people have to keep coming back, like it just seems to me like we would have filled up ages ago. To me, like if that's what was going on, like nothing would have wiped anything out because those lives have to keep going. But we obviously know life at one point was wiped out to like next to nothing on this planet.
So maybe they just went to another planet.
Could be, but again, I go back to my original statement. I think the universe would have fucking filled up by now. Because to me, it doesn't make sense in that way. You know, it would make more sense if we saw more life forms. Let me put it that way. To me, it would make more sense if we saw more in the way of life forms outside of our Earth. And we technically don't. Quote unquote. I'm not going to give the Tic Tac UFO alien connotations yet. That could be time traveling people from the future. And I'm totally behind that too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, so
and you know, and then there is so much like
it's just the reincarnation thing for me, Holly. It's hard because, like I said, it just seems like the numbers don't jive. You know what I'm saying?
And see, this is where you go back to your previous statement where you have to have essentially the math.
Yeah, the math has to work.
The math has to work for Chris. So if he has 2 apples on one side, he has to have at least, the equivalent amount of 2 apples on the other side.
Well, listen, we've all been fucking flung off that fucking goddamn thing on the playground because the big kid got on the other end.
Well, Katie's here. Hey, Katie. Hey,
Morning,
back
Katie.
69. Hi, Frank. Hi, Kim Zab.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
That person says that they're happy that we both don't know anything for sure.
Yeah, I don't know shit.
We're a podcast of
I don't know shit. I have opinions, but I don't know shit.
We talk a lot about nothing here.
Yeah, the show that talks about nothing but is not nearly as funny as Seinfeld. But anyway,
sorry, I lack in the humor department.
No, Holly, we that's not what we're really going for. We're talking about, deep shit. I mean, we try to be like a little comical, but we're not fucking. I'm not Jerry Seinfeld. That's for fuck sure. Yeah. God, I would not. I'd never even make the comparison. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. So I can get going with my day. I've had a hell of a start to my morning, I can tell you that. It started early and then went right back to bed. But I got to snuggle with my little girl, my little puppy. So that was all good. This has been Slip Into the Night, episode, I don't know, 36, 37. See, I
It
gotta
might
get
even
better.
be 39.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I need to do better about that. Karma's gonna get you. We'll be back. We'll try to be back next week. Schedules permitting.
Yeah, sorry
excuse
guys.
me.
My work has been crazy. As you know, I work in the medical field, and we have this thing called a pandemic happening, and
Yeah, the Rona. So,
the Rona.
as my son calls it, the Rona.
Plus,
So,
all kinds of other things.
we'll try to do the shows on Saturday, and if something comes up, we'll switch it out or change it up, or we'll figure something out. But we will continue the show. So we will see you all next time. Bye bye.